I have no doubt, by the way, that there are false flags by organizations like this, the ones you mentioned, and other ones we're missing from around the world that include using allegedly like Islamic terrorists that really aren't. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But when you're like, oh, that's all of them every time, it's like,
yeah,
man, can I play you some tape of the Ayatollah talking about, all these people are sending out there to fucking blow themselves up? Like, we just got Zawahiri 2 years ago.
Yeah, which is
Think
crazy.
about that.
Yeah.
That motherfucker was the cockroach to end all cockroaches. He lived through every era.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking about it on this podcast. Like, we never got al-Zawahiri. Like, that's kind of crazy. He was obviously all these people have some sort of religious dogma where they bastardize the religion for their own means politically and whatever. That's a whole separate thing. But once you remove like the crazy gene in there as like as a thinker and strategist, unfortunately, he was very effective. And we could not get him. And he was able to navigate for Al-Qaeda that time period when ISIS really took over.
Yeah.
Because, Al-Qaeda, bad as they were, ISIS came up, they're like, yo, listen, we ain't like that.
Right.
They're a little crazy for us. So you had the most extreme dogma reaching so many people around the world, and Al-Qaeda was able to survive through that and continue. And now, obviously, we've seen the remnants of that come through in Syria and what's happening there. And that, unfortunately, is because at some level, they have some people that are bad, but they're unfortunately effective leaders.
Well, and when they're in each of these places, it's a power vacuum, right? And it's like, what do people want? They want authority. I mean, you talk to people in Pakistan in the tribal areas along the border with Afghanistan. All they want is safety. Yes. And they are deeply religious, but their number one priority is having safety and not being extorted by the police on a daily basis or whatever happens. And then these guys come along and they say, oh, well, we have our own justice system. We're not going to take your money. And for whatever you want to say about the jihadists, they're definitely not in it for the money. So that's, but in each of these places, Somalia, it's the same thing. I mean, there's still Al-Shabaab runs half the country there. Yeah. So it's West Africa, Mali, all these places, it's the same kind of thing. Lack of authority, horrible governance, tons of poverty, and then these guys take over, and it still happens.
Did you get to ask these guys at all about the fact that it's never the leaders who strap on the suicide vest or do the missions? They just always send them?
Dude, in Pakistan, everyone we talk to, they don't believe, and I'm not exaggerating, they don't believe that any of these people who blew themselves up were actually Islamic terrorists.
What do they think?
They think were Jewish terrorists?
Jewish.
Come on.
Jewish.
No way.
Jewish, Indian, CIA. If you look up now, so like right now there's a big issue in Pakistan with like the Baloch insurgency, Balochistan. They want to carve it out, make their own country. They believe that they believe they're all funded by India. There's some evidence that India is involved with this a little bit, but they believe Israel is in there blowing shit up in Western Pakistan, whatever. And you ask people like, why would they do that? Don't you think
all of them? Right. They think for all of them.
Not one person we spoke to. And we talked to, hundreds of people across the country, ranging from educated to not. Now, I don't want to say, obviously, if you go and talk to like really Western-minded people, or not even Western, educated people over there, you're going to, I'd say, I don't know what percentage, a large percentage of them isn't going to agree with what I just said. But, most people in Pakistan are not educated, right?
You're talking to the people on the ground. That's important. Yeah. You're
and
talking
certainly
to the masses.
You ask them, well, what about that? And they'll say spies. They'll say CIA. You just name it. It's deflecting on everything. And then when you say, well, don't you think there's an issue with radical Islam? Well, they're not Muslims. They're CIA, Indian, Israeli.
I have no doubt, by the way, that there are false flags by organizations like this, the ones you mentioned, and other ones we're missing from around the world that include using allegedly like Islamic terrorists that really aren't. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But when you're like, oh, that's all of them every time, it's like, man, can I play you some tape of the Ayatollah talking about, all these people are sending out there to fucking blow themselves up? Like, that's not fake. No. It's just strange because that's why I love channels like what you guys are doing, because you're actually going there on the ground. And like I said, you speak their language too. You can really understand it, and you do a great job of like bringing some of it home to us where, you try to put yourselves in the shoes of someone who has never been to school before, or lives in the mountains and doesn't have a TV, or all these things, right? That has grown up, maybe they're 18 years old and they've grown up in the post 9/11 era, and this is what they hear. and then you see how normal they are as a person, you have to think to yourself, would I be the same way? Maybe.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. I think also hearing the history is fascinating. Someone who knows virtually very little about Pakistan's history, but that has to create some sort of psychosis in your mind where you are just so fundamentally, so instinctively distrustful of any Western narrative, even the most basic truths, even something captured on video. It's all sort of some elaborate scheme to frame you, and you just have no reason to believe them. You have resentment. You have all these underlying feelings that would make you viscerally say, this has got to be fake. Anything that makes us look bad, we're framed. But that does sort of also undermine anyone who's having this holy shit moment right now of, wait, can we trust the accepted Osama bin Laden narrative, given that everyone on the ground is just, it does sort of undermine their worldview. Not to suggest that there aren't a lot of false moments, but that does sort of show that, no, this is like a fundamental, this is not fact specific. This is very much generalized distrust.
Totally. I'd say that the other thing you deal with there is people refuse to or are terrified to criticize Islam. So they think that talking about this stuff and believing it, I mean, a lot of people definitely, there's a little bit of an, I don't want to comment too much, but I would say one way to look at it would be like a bit of an insecurity about it, where if you acknowledge these issues, you're then saying it's not a perfect faith and all this and that, and you're opening yourself up to either a lot of trouble or they don't want to go there with their own faith or whatever it is. But there's that whole like faith aspect of it that complicates it. And it'd be the same thing, I'm sure, if you went to some like extremely conservative Christian place in here and you said, what about this, this, and this? You know, when people have are in that kind of world, it's very difficult to criticize it at all. Like, and it's no different there. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the world use religion, whatever it may be, for good, and I think that's a great thing. There is then a subset percentage, you pick your religion, where people bastardize it and use it for power, and then sometimes they will get the people who are trying to use it for good to then have to fall in line under whatever this is right here. And whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Hindu, I don't give a fuck what it is. Like, it makes it so self-defeating to me, and it makes me cynical about it, because it's like, you know, we all got one thing in common. We're all going to die at some point. And the second thing we have in common is we all don't fucking really know what happens afterwards. So why do we have to have these ancient texts that just, you're either fully on the team or not, to divide us? You look at world history, that's what causes the majority of wars. It's a crazy thing that we're talking about this in 2025, but we are.
Well, also, whenever it interweaves with government, that's when it becomes especially bad. And you even look at the worst sins in Christianity's resume, when you sort of think of the major critiques of Christianity, and they're almost all related to sort of governmental claims to religion that are just, whether it's Constantine in the Roman Empire, whether it was the conquistadors, whether it was the Crusades, every sort of ill committed in the name of Christianity was done by government.
Yep.
And even in Jesus, I always think of the fact that the groups he went after the most were the Pharisees and were the clergy. Essentially, anyone who was in position of power, who was in the temple, who did he go after the most? It wasn't the Roman centurions, it wasn't the Samaritans, it was the people who held positions of religious power that had governmental authority even. And so you think about today, if you think about, for example, this is a hot topic, but sort of attitudes toward Judaism or anti-Semitism or whatever, a lot of it's really directed at a government.
Right.
And similarly, I think with Islam, where it gets trickier is when it's a theocratic state acting on behalf of Islam and not the individuals who, you know, many of whom we traveled, like we went to the Arab majority community in Dearborn, Michigan, and there's no place I'd rather want to keep my bike unlocked in America, you know, or it's up there. Like, I would not, now would I want to raise a daughter? That's where I guess it, but like there is definitely an element of like, whenever it gets interwoven with power, that's where like the crazy shit happens.
And you should be able to criticize some things too. Like, different cultures around the world are different, and I have to understand that I don't understand all of them. But objectively, yeah, would I like to see a world where, you know, you don't force a 10-year-old girl to only see her eyeballs? outside every day and she can actually go get educated? Yes. Would I also like to see a world, not taking away free markets, but would I like to see a world where, you know, a fucking 18-year-old isn't shaking her ass for $5 on the internet? You know, naked on OnlyFans? Yeah, I'd like to see that too. But the slippery slope of stopping that is now free speech. So I understand how complicated it gets. It's just, we should be able to have these conversations like, yes, Saudi Arabia, women should be able to drive, you know, and it shouldn't be like, they're being hateful of this religion or Islamophobic. It's like, no, I'm being 2025.
Totally.
Yeah. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.